This is Next Radio.
With Broadcast Bionics, innovative solutions for creative people.
I'm just a little bit conscious that we need to switch the energy. What Jerry just did there was so inspiring in parts and heartbreaking in parts, and a reminder of what an important thing radio can be in a democracy. And I'm going to be inane. So we just need to switch the energy a bit. So what I'd like you to do now is just lower your expectations. And then, on the other hand, look forward to the fact that it's very nearly coffee break. I think there's only one more person after me, so we're switching from inspirational to inane. Is everybody comfortable? It's an odd transition, but just bear with me a second. Oh, thank you. I bought this yesterday, and the girl in the shop showed me how to set it up, and it was fine, but now that I try to do it myself, it seems very unsteady on its feet, but I think that's okay. Do what now? Another royal birth. Another royal birth, he said, if you didn't hear. Right, here are my slides. How's that? The reason I'm using these, by the way, is I spilled some milk into my laptop, and it's in a bag of rice at the moment, which is a great shame because I was looking forward to doing PowerPoint. I've learned all about PowerPoint for this. In fact, I'm going to divide you into 3 teams to try and sustain your interest. So, named after great broadcasting figures, you can be Marconi. People in the middle, you are Team Reith, as in Lord Reith. You people here are Team Nightingale, as in Annie Nightingale, the BBC Radio 1's longest-serving disc jockey. So a pop quiz. So who knows the company that launched PowerPoint? Microsoft. That was on Team Nightingale. It wasn't Microsoft, no. It was a company called Forethought Inc., who got bought by Microsoft. It was called Presenter originally, but of course, who was the man who changed it from Presenter to PowerPoint? Who? Bill Gates is the wrong answer. No, it's a fellow called Robert Gaskins who worked at Forethought Inc. They sold it to Microsoft. In modern money, it would only be about $28 million, so not that much when you think about what product it is. And with his money, he moved to London. He renovated a house quite close to Buckingham Palace. And he's become one of the world's foremost experts on the concertina, which I didn't know. You know the squeeze-boxy concertina thing? It's the only musical instrument native to England. Like you think, oh, what about a lute or a recorder? No, those were imports. They came from elsewhere. Anyway, so let's start my slideshow. Hello. My talk is called People Are Idiots. And that's an attention-grabbing title for the talk. I don't really think that people are idiots. I think some people are idiots. Sometimes when I'm around Piccadilly Circus, I think that the rest of society is a loose coalition of idiots, hell-bent on thwarting me. But I actually don't think that. But I think there is somewhat of a culture in radio of treating audiences like that other, or like they're idiots. I've been working in radio for around 20 years. And even now, and certainly when I started, there was like this thing that you would refer to listeners as pond life, or proletariat, or people would be like, oh, where'd you get that cake from? Oh, listener sent it. Oh, don't eat it. Don't eat it. They're dirty people. They're the infected. Or the people who turn up at station events. There's almost this view that the listeners are weirdos. And even now, if you talk to a program director or a music director, and you're working in the office with the radio on all day, and you say, God, I'm sick of that record, or oh, I really like this record, maybe we should play it. They say, no, but the listeners wouldn't like it, or the listeners don't think that. I think, but I'm listening to the radio all day, and I'm hearing those records, and I'm sort of getting sick of it, and they're in their workplaces listening to it, so maybe no, they're different. They're different. But one of my friends said something like that. No, they're different as well. And there's this idea that the listeners aren't anybody we would know. They're like this subspecies of mutants who live in the sewers, probably. I'm going to show you a quote by H.L. Mencken, who was a great wit. He was a columnist in the early part of the 20th century. And he if you look him up on the internet, you will see loads of very quotable excerpts from his various columns and writings. Some of them a bit dodgy. He was a product of his times, a bit racist. But he's an interesting figure. One of the best things he ever did was the bathtub hoax. He wrote an article in the New York Evening Mail saying that a history of the bathtub, and saying that it didn't become popular in America until 1842. People didn't like it. They liked washing standing up. And then in 1842, it was popularized because Millard Fillmore had one. Anybody know who Millard Fillmore is? He was the 13th president of the United States, considered a very bad president. On his deathbed, he was given some soup, and his last words were, "The nourishment is palatable." Anyway, onto this quote. I didn't think this room was quite so big as it is. Can people see that quote? Can you even see that? Okay, then I'll read it to you. This is this H.L. Mencken quote. "No one in this world has ever lost money by underestimating the intelligence of the great masses of the plain people." H.L. Mencken. And it's a good quote. It's funny, like so many of his quotes are, but I don't think it's true. It's based around this idea that the best way to run a business is to assume that people are morons and treat them like morons. I know a lot of idiots. I am an idiot. I'm going to show you some people I know. James, can you show me the first photo, please? This is someone I know called Damien. He's from Kent. He's an electrician. He's into football. He likes a drink. His favourite TV show is Family Guy. Also loves the work of Bell and Sebastian, the twee indie band, who are perhaps the most bookish band that you can imagine. Next photo, please, James. This is my friend Rhiannon. She works in PR. She's a bit of a party girl. She loves going to festivals. She loves a bit of reality TV. She watches Britain's Got Talent. Also, she knows everything about animals. If you pick some obscure species of bird only found on the Galapagos Islands, she will know about it. And she also played trumpet to such an extent that she was in the prom. She was like as good as you can get on a trumpet. Next one, please, James. This is my friend Alex. It's quite dark. I don't know if you can see him. Can you see him? I can't see him much from here. Bad photo. He's in his 50s. He looks a little bit like Simon Callow. And he went to Eton. He's chief executive. He loves fine wine. Also loves heavy metal. He had a teenage stepson who was really into heavy metal, and he was surly and withdrawn. So Alex thought, how can I bring him out of himself? So he learned about heavy metal just to annoy him, particularly the band Slipknot. So the boy would be sitting there not speaking at dinner, and Alex would say, how's the bass player Paul Gray doing? Is he concentrating on his side project, Anal Blast? And at first it was just a joke, but he went to some heavy metal concerts. He went to see that Finnish band, Lordi, from the Eurovision. And the thing is, research would put all these people into target groups, and yet these big passions of theirs would fall down between the cracks, because what target groups are averages. It's what the average listener is, and that sort of ignores passion. Like, I've heard of people working at radio stations, and they're very clearly told, okay, we're focusing at a 32-year-old female. You know, she lives in Solihull near Birmingham. She shops at Tesco. She does this. She watches this on TV. She likes Sex and the City. She shops here. And that is fine to an extent, but it misses those passions. And everybody is so different. Everybody's got a thing that you wouldn't expect about them. And averages are just that. You know, the average, there's a certain blandness to them. And I don't think you can easily second guess that or try to fake it. Like, who here is a football fan? I'm not. I hate it. I really hate it. I just don't understand the appeal at all. And if I tried to talk to you about football, I would sound like a fake and a phony, because, you know, I'd probably use the word footy. Who uses the word footy? Nobody. And it sounds phony, and when you try and second-guess what people want to hear, you end up sounding phony with it. And audiences are more used to real these days. They're more savvy. In an age of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and reality TV even, we've become very finely attuned to what is genuine and what is fake, what is real and what is phony. And listeners have developed an innate ability to spot What about that? I drew that last night in my living room. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it means less when it's fished for, but thank you anyway. Yeah, this is bullshit. Now that's not a cow, so you'll have to imagine it's got a penis. Does anybody know what a bull's penis is called, by the way? Pizzle, yes! Lord Reith, congratulations, house point for you. A pizzle you can use it used to be used in glue. In Jamaica, it's used as an aphrodisiac. They make bull's penis soup. If you go there, don't order cow cod soup, because that's what they call it. And the cow here, does anybody recognise it? Yes! Nightingale, laughing cow. Does anybody know which historical event the laughing cow is partly responsible for? Well, I'm going to surprise you. America entering World War II. So just to run through it very quickly, one of the events which led America to enter World War II was there was a German U-boat, a submarine called the U-69. It sunk a ship off Sierra Leone, which was not a military ship, it was an American ship flying the American flag. Roosevelt was pissed off with this. He called Germany an international outlaw, and he chucked all their consulates and the Italians and the Germans out of America. What's that got to do with the laughing cow? That was its emblem. The first mate was eating some laughing cow cheese one day, and he thought, that's good. So they painted it on the U-boat, and that was the name of that U-boat. Not just the U-69, but the laughing cow. Anyway, my point being, and yes, there is one, people can smell bullshit. And I think people put up with different things in times of scarcity. If you go back 10 years, radio was very different. We didn't have the kind of choice in the stuff served especially to us that we have now. You would listen to 10 songs, 5 of them you'd be indifferent to, 2 of them you might love, 2 of them you hate, 1 of them you might just dislike. Whereas now, and certainly in 5 years' time, it won't be a question of logging into Spotify and doing complicated things. Your computer, your phone, your device, whatever it is, the stuff that Dan and Libby were talking about, it will spew music at you exactly how you want it without thinking, and those algorithms will get better. If you're sitting here thinking, a computer can never do that, our friends in the music industry and the print industry also thought that at some stage, and it's worth bearing that in mind. And even in terms of speech content, it would be very easy for me to download podcasts exclusively about Game of Thrones, unicycles, mix it up with some songs by the Beatles and George Formby, and that would be better for me than any other radio station on paper. But we can't do that, of course. We, as radio broadcasters, can't offer that kind of super-served service to people. We can't launch 60 million radio stations. So what do we do then? Here's the answer. I've seen other people use these words, so I thought I'd look professional if I use them. Don't really know what any of them mean. So I'm going to change it to that. Interesting people. I'll use my pointer. $11.99. Interesting people being their authentic selves. And talk about real people, people who are good storytellers, people who are good at sharing stuff. I'm an alcoholic. And after I gave up the booze, I became very socially awkward because I was so used to being out drunk. And it got to a point once where I was out at night, sober, with some people. The small talk was so excruciating, there was this deadly silence, and I found myself saying to one of the people I'm talking to, do you think if I jumped, I could touch the ceiling? I was that desperate for something to say. That was what fell out of my mouth. So I went to see a psychologist, and he gave me a book called Nonviolent Communication, which was very embarrassing to read on the tube because I looked like a wife beater. But it was research from psychologists has shown that the thing that people respond to most in a conversation, the best conversations, are people talking about what is alive about in them, what their passions are. And it can be opinion. Rick was talking about Al Murray on Planet Rock. It can be opinion or passion for a particular subject. Or passion for life, even. You listen to Chris Evans on Radio 2, that's what he exudes. And that really resonates with people, a conversation where people are saying what is alive in them and asking people about what is alive in them. And there are so many people who've risen to prominence doing that. In fact, anybody you can think of who's that good, anybody who's really sunk through into the public consciousness, is that's what they're doing. Think of Brian Cox on paper. Who knew Brian Cox would be this huge star? Like talking about astronomy and physics on BBC One on a Sunday evening. Caitlin Moran, I mean, she's got this huge publishing, she's become a huge publishing phenomenon, social media phenomenon. 21st feminism, no market research would have told you, oh, that's what people are looking for. It's about finding people who have these passions, these opinions, this life, and getting them to share them. And across the board, you know, I mentioned Chris Evans, Andrew Marr, Russell Brand. These are all people who don't work on paper, but they bring something from inside themselves, and that's what people are responding to with them, I think. One of my favourite programmes is Desert Island Discs. And I like it when it's not Dustin Hoffman or somebody you've heard of. I liked it, the last one I listened to, when it was The Economist, Daniel Kahneman. Because when he talked, it was a subject on which I had no knowledge, and it could be very dry and boring, and yet he's talking with a passion. He's telling that story with a passion. Same when I heard Val McDermid the other week, the crime writer. Never read any of her stuff, but there was something about the essence of her sharing what was alive in her. That is the most special kind of connection on radio, and I don't know if people listen to The Moth or This American Life. It's the same thing. It can be very prosaic stories, but told from a position of passion or what's alive in people. It's the most engaging thing you can listen to. I'm going to barrel through this. Treat your audience like idiots, they will behave like idiots. But if you don't, I hear people say, oh, radio was social media before social media was we were the conversation. And it's true, it sounds corny, but we've always been very good at conversation. And if you involve your listeners, it's a good thing. It's good for them because they feel part of it, and all my favourite radio you feel a part of. And it's good for you because as a broadcaster, they're generating stuff for you and enhancing that sense of community. And if you don't treat them like idiots, they won't behave like idiots. Listen to Terry Wogan's breakfast show. It was incomprehensible if you didn't listen to it. The first time you heard that show, the first 10 times you heard that show, it made no sense because he was allowing the listeners to be in on the joke and trusting that it was warm enough, it was a safe enough environment that you would get into it. Danny Baker, probably most, as cerebral as any other program on radio. And it's the most obtuse program as well. If you only put good stuff on the air, it will raise the bar in terms of what you get from listeners. Because they'll hear good stuff and they'll think, oh, I have to be that good. You know, if you ask them for the same old stuff, oh, tell us your best chat-up line, you will get shit from them. But if you ask them, have you ever hidden in the wardrobe, or have you ever performed dentistry on yourself, you probably only get one call, but that call is going to be amazing because they've got material for you on those subjects. I'm a bit tight on time now. They've really told me not to overrun. Nobody else has overrun. They started 6 minutes late. Not my fault. And yeah, I'm being penalised. I can have 2 minutes. Thank you, Matt. Just as an example of treating people like they're not idiots and they won't behave like them. I mean, mixing lowbrow and highbrow. I was watching The X Factor last year, and you know that the big letter X zooms from at the outer reaches of the solar system, and it zooms through space, and it goes past Mars and the moon, and then all of a sudden it's on Earth, and it's zooming along the Thames, and it's in London. I was wondering how fast that was travelling to get from presumably Pluto to Earth. I mentioned this on the air. Listeners were queuing up to do that calculation because they like sharing that. And I think if you treat them like they're in on the joke. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to say treat them like they're in on the joke and they will be in on the joke. As I say, I had this all strewn around my bedroom yesterday and front room and paper and pens everywhere, so it's a bit of a mess. But they will behave like that. I remember one of the writers of Frasier once saying they would put in every episode references and jokes that only 5% of the audience would understand, which sounds obtuse. But it's washing over the ones who don't, or it's making them think, what's that? I'm going to look into that, which is a rewarding thing in itself. Or the 5% who think, oh, I'm clever for knowing that, get more from that program than they would from any other sitcom on TV. And same with The Simpsons. I mean, it's crammed packed with these clever cultural references. And these aren't unsuccessful programs. These are big, mainstream hits. And I just think if you treat people like they're clever, they will behave like they're clever. So I'm going to leave it there. Of course, I am an idiot for wondering about the X Factor X. You're idiotic for listening to me. And I just thought I would leave you with a list of, and this is a bit self-serving, sorry, but it's a list of topics that I've covered recently, which have gone fine. The audience hasn't deserted me, they've not vanished, so I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geoff.
The most enjoyable thing about today was Geoff Lloyd, just kind of reminding us that we shouldn't take anything about our audiences for granted.
Really like the fact that we're starting to think about what the listener is like and not thinking about necessarily programming in such a technical sense.
Just really funny, really interesting, quirky guy, and made you think as well.
This is Next Radio.
With Broadcast Bionics, innovative solutions for creative people.